Doe cases are often the most difficult to investigate. After all, how can you expect to pursue a suspect when you don't even know who your victim is? In recent years, we've seen an upswing in identifications of these unknown people, bringing hope to investigators and families across the world that one day they will also find justice and closure. Number 5. In October of 1983, the bodies of 4 young men were found by mushroom foragers in Lake Village, Newton County, Indiana. It was apparent that all 4 men had been the victims of homicide, and each man was labeled victim A through D, with victims C and D being quickly identified and reunited with their families. Sadly, despite their best efforts, victims A and B would remain unidentified for decades. Victim A is also known as Adam and is still unidentified, and the Newton County Police needs your help identifying him. He's best described as a black male between the ages of 18 and 21 with short black hair. The coroner estimated that he was between 5'8" and 6'2", and had numerous fillings in his teeth. Adam was found wearing a pair of Levi jeans, a pair of Hush Puppy brand boots, and a distinctive red and black belt with the word devil on it. If you have any information about Adam, you're asked to contact the Newton County Coroner's Office on 219-285-2515, quoting case number 5609 Adam 83. While Adam lays unidentified, in 2021, there was a glimmer of hope in the Newton County Doe's case. As previously mentioned, victims A and B were unidentified, and in 2021, genetic genealogy helped crack the case of victim B's true identity. At the same time as Adam and victim C and D, victim B was found and was described as a white male between the ages of 18 and 23, with medium-length, reddish-brown wavy hair. The coroner says that victim B was between 5'11 and 6'1, and previously fractured his nose and left ankle earlier in life. Victim B also had 2 distinctive tattoos on his right arm. One of these was a cross with 2 markings near the top of the cross. The other was noted as being possibly U-shaped or rectangular, with 1 circular mark. Due to the distinctive nature of these tattoos, law enforcement believed that these were the best hopes of identifying victim B. The Newton County Sheriff's Office circulated information about victims A and B in the local news, making sure to include B's distinctive tattoos. This didn't yield the results they'd hoped for, and within months they were back to square one. Years passed, and without any leads to go on, the case of the Newton County Does soon went cold. That was until 2019, when the Newton County Sheriff's Office requested the help of the DNA Doe Project, a nonprofit organization that uses forensic science to help the unknown and help bring them home. By 2021, victim B's DNA sample was sent to Hudson Alpha Discovery for genome sequencing, and with the assistance of Kevin Lord of Sabre Investigations, by March of 2021, they'd found a match. Lord explained that by uploading the DNA sample into the genealogical databases, such as GED Match, they were able to find a close relative of victim B. On April 24, 2021, the Newton County Sheriff's Office held a press conference and announced that victim B had been formally identified as John Brandenburg of Chicago, Illinois. Brandenburg was last seen leaving his Chicago, Illinois home in 1983 after telling his family he was going to visit a friend. Number 4. In September of 1985, a bear hunter was making their way through Crystal Creek in Missoula, Montana, when they came across the skeletal remains of a woman. The hunter called 911, and police quickly arrived at the scene and began their investigation. As the woman's remains were skeletal, there were few details to work with. The coroner was able to recover two .32 caliber bullets from the woman's skull, and forensic ballistic analysts concluded that the bullets were created by the Winchester Western Silvertop brand and could have been used in various weapons. It was also speculated that the woman was of Japanese descent due to a screw-in dental post on tooth number 12, a technique that was used in Asia. Her dental records were sent to dentists in the area in hopes that someone may recognize her. Sadly, no one came forward to claim the woman's remains, and her details did not fit any missing persons reports. The Missoula County Sheriff's Department named her Christy Crystal Creek after the area she was found in. An official statement from the Missoula County Sheriff's Office said, quote, "Despite decades of work with forensic anthropologists and a forensic odontologist and hours of research scouring missing persons databases here and in Canada, her identity remained a mystery." That was until 2021, when the Missoula County Sheriff's Office was granted financial aid from the Montana Department of Justice's Sexual Assault Kit Initiative. The initiative had been set up to clear the backlog of kits and had teamed up with Othram Inc., who provided forensic genealogical services. Sheriff TJ McDermott immediately contacted Othram Inc. and asked them if they would be able to assist with the identification of a woman known only as Christy Crystal Creek. Othram Inc. agreed and undertook an advanced DNA analysis on Christy, and within weeks they were able to find a relative from Washington. Sheriff McDermott made the following statement to the press, saying, quote, "After conducting numerous interviews and confirming our conclusions with additional DNA testing of relatives, we're now able to conclusively identify Christy Crystal Creek as Janet Lucas." Janet Lucas was just 23 years old when she went missing. She was a native of Washington, but those closest to her say that they last saw her in 1983 in Idaho. Lucas had a 5-year-old son at the time she disappeared, and her family say they're grateful to be able to bring her home and give her the burial she deserves. Number 3. On December 2nd, 1990, the remains of a woman were found near an abandoned farmhouse on Oscar Talley Road between Lanigan and Pineville, Missouri. From the start, this case was filled with complexities, and without being able to positively identify the deceased, the mystery only deepened. It was determined that the deceased was a female and was either white or possibly mixed race, being white and Native American. She was between 21 and 31 years old and had dark brown hair with natural auburn highlights when the sun shone on it. After examining her teeth and creating dental x-rays and models, the coroner was able to determine that she'd been well cared for and had undergone extensive orthodontic work in her life. Despite all these details, the McDonald County Coroner's Office was unable to make an identification, and the woman remained known as Grace Doe. Their next step was to appeal to the public and ask for their assistance in identifying the woman who'd become known as Grace Doe. Shocking details would be released further down the line, and the McDonald County Sheriff's Office revealed that Grace had been bound with 6 different types of cords. She'd been bound with nylon, lead, coaxial, telephone, and parachute cord, and even clothesline. Interestingly, investigators noticed that the parachute cord used to bind her was a military grade MIL C5040H Type 2 that was only sold to the military and not available to the public. In 2020, Grace Doe's case was revisited by the McDonald County Sheriff's Office in conjunction with Orthram Inc., a company that provides forensic genealogical and anthropological analysis to law enforcement. Social media users rallied behind the case and raised $5,000 needed to process Grace Doe's DNA. For months, those who had donated to her case waited, and in January of 2021, Orthram Inc. was pleased to announce that the Grace Doe family finally had her back. Grace Doe was formally identified as Shauna Beth Garber of Garnett, Kansas, who'd spent most of her life in and out of the care system. Orthram Inc. tracked down Shauna's half-sister, Danielle Pixler, who confirmed that she'd not spoken to her half-sister in over 31 years after Shauna had left the system. Danielle told DNAsolves.com that there isn't a day that's gone by where she hasn't thought about Shauna and devoted the last 28 years of her life to tracking her down. Although Grace Doe has been identified, law enforcement is still seeking any information that will bring the person responsible to justice. If you have any more information about what happened to Shauna Beth Garber, you're asked to contact the McDonald County Sheriff's Office at 417-223-7429. Number 2. Hikers on the Climbers Descent Trail in Multnomah Falls, Oregon, came across the skeletal remains of a man in September of 1979. As his remains were skeletal, the details were sparse. However, the coroner was able to deduce that the man was between the ages of 20 and 35. He was black, 5'10", and had short black hair. The deceased was also found wearing a light green shirt, blue jeans, and size 32 black leather belt, as well as a brown suede jacket, a yellow baseball cap with the letters NT on the front, and size 9.5 hiking boots. Also found with the victim were gold-rimmed glasses that had been held together with sellotape in several places. Despite the detailed report of clothing and personal items, the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office was unable to match this to any missing person that had been filed recently. As the remains were skeletal, fingerprints were not taken, but the Doe's teeth were still intact. His teeth showed fillings and crowns, and law enforcement hoped that dental records would help identify the man, who they came to know as the Multnomah County Doe. Sadly, these efforts proved fruitless, and for decades, the Multnomah County Doe remained unidentified. That was until 2018, when the Oregon State Police were awarded a grant to perform innovative DNA techniques on unidentified victims. The Doe's DNA had previously been submitted to the CODIS system, however, it had yielded no results. Using the same DNA sample, a laboratory was able to create a DNA phenotyping and genetic genealogy report in January of 2021, which brought up the name of Freeman Asher Jr. Asher Jr. was last known to have been in Portland in 1976, but lost contact with his family soon after. Oregon State Police reached out to Asher Jr.'s sister, who lived in California, to obtain a DNA sample for comparison, and the results were a match. The Multnomah County Doe was formally identified as Freeman Asher Jr., and they estimated that Asher Jr. had been deceased for up to 2 years when his remains were found, making it likely he'd passed soon after he moved to Portland. If you have any information about Asher Freeman Jr.'s case, you're urged to contact the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office at 971-673-8300. Number 1. One of the more well-known Doe cases is that of the Sumter County Does. At 6:20 a.m. on August 9, 1976, in Sumter, South Carolina, a trucker came across the bodies of a young man and woman who'd both been shot 3 times. Disturbed by what he had found, the trucker ran to the nearest convenience store and asked an employee to call the police. After arriving on the scene, police set about interviewing potential witnesses. They interviewed one man who lived close to where the 2 people were found, who recalled that in the early morning hours, he'd heard a car traveling down a small road that connects Interstate 95 to SC 341. He explained to officers that he heard someone get out of the car, followed by multiple gunshots before the car sped off into the distance. Neither of the deceased was carrying identification with them. They had no money and strangely were not wearing any underwear. For reasons that are unknown, early on, law enforcement believed that the pair had either come from an affluent area or were from a different country and were backpacking across the US. The prevailing theory is that the 2 were carjacked on a desolate road and they perhaps accepted a ride from the wrong person. The female was described as white between the ages of 18 and 25, with brown medium-length hair and blue-gray, blue-green, or hazel eyes. The coroner also reported that she had 2 distinctive moles on her left cheek, a mole on her right calf, and pierced ears. She was also found wearing 3 silver rings that had appeared to be handmade and may have originated from Mexico or an indigenous reserve. The male was described as white and between the ages of 18 and 30, with brown hair and brown eyes. He had 2 by 2 inch scars on his right shoulder, a 4-inch appendectomy scar, and was between 6'1" and 6'4", with an athletic build. He also had extensive dental work, with the coroner describing them as very elaborate dental work with crowns and bridges, crown on the left front tooth, acrylic and porcelain, and fillings in most of the upper teeth. The male doe's dental work was so extensive that a forensic dentist in Spartanburg took on the case and made a full dental record, hoping that it would lead to his identification. The dentist later published these to the American Dental Association. However, no one recognized the man or his dental work. For decades, the case sat cold, but investigators never gave up hope of one day identifying the does that they'd come to know as the Sumter County Does. In 2019, technology had finally caught up, and the Sumter County Sheriff's Office was able to submit the Sumter County Doe cases to the DNA Doe Project for further testing. By September of 2020, DNA had successfully been extracted and was ready to be sequenced by the team at the DNA Doe Project. Months passed without any updates, but then in January of 2021, the DNA Doe Project made an exciting announcement. In conjunction with the Sumter County Sheriff's Office, they held a press conference where they were pleased to announce that the Sumter County Does had been identified as James Paul Freund and Pamela Mae Buckley from Massachusetts and Minnesota, respectively. The Sumter County Sheriff's Office confirmed that the 2 had been reported missing in 1975, and it's likely they'd met each other while hitchhiking. As of May of 2021, there are no suspects, and the Sumter County Sheriff's Office needs your help. If you have any information, you're urged to contact the Sumter County Sheriff's Office at 803-436-2790, quoting case number 76672, A. Sumter S.O. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.